All right, welcome everyone. All right, welcome everyone to the product intelligence sync on the, what day is it? 20th of December. So only a few days to go until Christmas. Let's directly get into our agenda. We have a bunch of things on there today. So I would start since the current milestone 15.7 or the last milestone 15.7 was is ending right now, and we're starting with 15.8. We introduced going through the milestone planning issue within the last milestone, and I think the overall feedback was that this is quite helpful and can help giving a bit more of a context on why we're doing certain things. And so since Sam is on vacation today, normally he as a product manager would take this over. I'm going to do it today. I'm going to try to do it justice. Feel free to interrupt me at any point and ask questions, because this is mainly for, I already know the issue, so it's mainly for you to kind of get a bit of a understanding of what we're planning with in the next or in the current milestone. So let me share my screen. Where is it? Can you see the board, the issue?
Yep.
All right. It's readable enough? Okay, cool. All right, so maybe just a quick note on capacity, because this is a discussion that we also had in the in an update I made to our group documentation. So right now, our coverage is still calculated by taking a rough average on what we were able to achieve over the last sprints, like more kind of estimating also what on average an engineer can do per day. In the future, Mikola made a good point that we should probably set up a dashboard to actually kind of see a bit more clearly what we achieved over the last, what we actually achieved in points of the last milestones, and be able to make a bit more accurate calculations. Capacity in itself is always going to be more of an estimation and just kind of give us a rough overview of what we might be able to achieve, but still it might be nice to see kind of how it fluctuates over the milestones. Also, when it comes to this, our overall capacity, this milestone is reduced by quite a bit because the holidays, everyone's going to be on vacation. Some of us a bit less, some of us a bit more. And so we, when it comes to the calculation, we're not, like, it doesn't look like we're going to be able to achieve that much. So just for you to know, like the last few milestones, our average was around like 55 points per milestone. Calculation right now says that it's going to be more around 35 points this time, with everyone being away. Still, we put quite a lot in the milestone. This is mainly because we want to be prepared for everyone being away, in the sense of reviews might take longer. You might get blocked on an issue while no one is there to answer specific questions, or specific people are just out that might be able to help you to get further. And so we rather have a bit more in the milestone right now, even though we don't in any way expect to achieve everything, just so that we're on the safe side and everyone kind of has enough stuff that's prepared that they can take up if they're blocked in any way, or don't know what to, like they cannot just go on with what they're currently working on or finish it. I hope that makes sense. Looking at the issues overall, one big target would be to finalize the conversion of Redis to Snowplow events. This, just so to put it a bit more in perspective, I don't have it as a link here right now, and I'm probably not going to find it if I try. But when we look at the overall epic that was kind of all this Redis to Snowplow conversion, we're, I think, around 90% there. And so it seems like we're very close to actually achieving converting the most important metrics to Snowplow. There's only a few of them left. Also, we're discovering again and again that some of them might already have been covered because oftentimes there's overlap between the different metrics. So I think it would be good to concentrate, even if I know that it can be tedious to work through those issues. But still, I think everyone would breathe a sigh of relief if we can get most of them out of the way, and it's only going to be like single events incoming from customer service or somebody else from time to time. Because, for example, in the last month, I think they raised one more event. So there's not a high chance that there's going to be like another flood of events that we need to convert coming in. And so if we can get this out of the way, I think it's going to enable us to concentrate a lot more on other things going forward. So this is one part. There's a bunch of things that are still, or one issue around this that is still in development. This is this first one. I think that mostly Piotr is working on. And then there's a bunch of these other metrics. Like as you can see, some of them are already closed. Those are ones that either have been already covered or were discovered to be duplicates. I still left them in just so that we have this overview and that we realize, okay, there's a bunch of them that we already covered. Apart from this, there's still a few things that we have to finish up. I think we don't need to go into detail about those things. I think generally speaking, everything is on track there. It's just a bit of back and forth that's still missing. And we have a few smaller issues like enabling or getting rid of a certain feature flag and adding a new, not a new field, but adjusting a field for our metrics definition to include a bit more information. So in this case, that's about not only signifying if a metric is a XMAU score, so is a performance indicator in the traditional sense, but also if it's used in customer health scoring, so inside Gainsight, which is another point which is important to understand, like if a metric is used there, that we don't that it's not kind of changed, because this might have a huge impact. Apart from this, there's two more issues that are more investigative. One of them is about ClickHouse. So I don't know, I think Piotr and Mikolaj, both of you, you're in the working group, so you're aware of it. Jonas, for you and for anyone else listening, ClickHouse is a alternative database that's especially suitable for analytics workloads. So typically kind of doing, for example, calculations around sums and counting rows and so on. GitLab in general decided on on standardizing on using ClickHouse for any kind of this type of workload. And now there's a working group going on where we are, like a lot of different teams are investigating how we can standardize around how GitLab is deployed within how ClickHouse is deployed within GitLab, how it's used within GitLab, and so on. And one of the main interesting things that we need to understand, especially if we want to use ClickHouse going forward, for example, inside service ping and things like that, is what kind of load we expect. Because ClickHouse definitely has different requirements depending on whether you have a high amount of load on your database or a lot of writes and how big the database is, or a low amount. And that then kind of has impact on how easy it is to deploy and what we kind of need from our end users in terms of deployment. The other one is a spike around defining a technical architecture and plan for a proposed Jitsi replacement. This is the first time that we're actually doing work together with the analytics team, which we're in the section with. They are currently using Jitsi as a all-in-one solution that allows them to track analytics data. So it's an open source solution that you can deploy that gives you an endpoint to track analytics data and a lot more functionality. And the first thing that we want to do there, because we, in the long run, the plan is that we are more responsible around this kind of collecting of data for analytics. So we want to understand kind of, what kind of alternatives are there around Jitsu, and how much time or effort would it be to replace Jitsu? Because Jitsu itself is, again, an open source project. There's also a company behind it, but it's not a really big open source project. So there is a bit of doubt around kind of the viability of relying on this type of technology in the long run. So that's the feature work. Do you have any questions around this part? Cool. I think the rest is a bit faster. We have a bit of carryover when it comes to maintenance. I think one of them Piotr is going to talk about anyway in a minute, the removing Snowplow IP enrichment. And apart from that, we pulled in a few things that have been going on for a long time anyway. So this refactoring, I think, has been touched again and again around the GitLab usage data counters. So that's something we want to finish. The upgrading Snowplow tracker to for Ruby 3.0 is already finished, which is quite nice because this would actually have been on a deadline. So that's awesome. We still will need to create a new distribution of the version app for Chihu, unfortunately. I think we're also going to talk about this in a minute, kind of the long-term plan with opening up the version app and so on. Yeah, and then there's also 2 bugs in the list. One of them, the title is still investigating a certain drop, but if you click into the issue, there's an MVC proposal from Mikolai around just creating some small monitoring, which allows us to understand if the problem that's described in this issue is something that's reoccurring or not. So this shouldn't be too much work as well. Yeah, and that's overall 15.8. So there's a lot of things to do still. Any questions before we move on?
Not from my side. Looks clear. Thanks so much.
Yeah, looking good.
All right. Nice. Then I'm going to stop sharing my screen and we can move on to the next part. So I just wanted to share 2 quick updates that are also kind of impacting some of the work that's ongoing. One of them is the automated service ping. That's something maybe especially interesting for you and Piotr and Mikolai. So unfortunately, it has been pushed again a bit. Original plan was that it's released or that we cut over already before Christmas. There were some bugs found, and so they wanted to do some additional testing. Now the plan is to do the cutover from manual service ping to automated service ping at the beginning of January. So this means that we are still going to need to do the manual process, at least for the next coming weeks, unfortunately. But then hopefully, if everything goes according to plan now, which it hopefully will, I think we've moved a lot closer, we should be rid of having to do the manual calculation in 15.9. So that's at least something, I think. Also, the other thing is the version app migration. You saw that there was at least one issue related to kind of creating scripts for that. So migrating the version app to a new cluster, which then in the long run would also allow us to open source the version app code and open it up to the public, which would allow us to get rid of this creating new releases for GU. There was a bit of a back and forth around infrastructure, who's going to be responsible for doing the actual migration. By now, it's decided which team is going to take it over, and they're going to add it to their OKRs for the next quarter, so not the current one, but the next one. So this is unfortunately still going to take some time. We are relying on infrastructure there. We cannot really move on our own. So it's a bit unfortunate. It means that we still need to do at least one more of these GU releases, but hopefully that's also going to be the last one before we then can move towards the new cluster. All right, I think that's it from my 2 points, if there's no questions. Piotr, you have the next one.
Yep, thanks. Yeah, as you've heard, I've been working on removing location data from new snowplow events due to some legal concerns, and we've covered removing them from new events through the pseudonymization lambda, and the data team will cover removing this data from the Snowflake models. But what I'm worried about is the remaining data in the S3 storage in the data lake. And I was wondering how we did it with user ID, with the original pseudonymization efforts. And now I see that Mikołaj wrote that we didn't have an issue because we weren't, we hadn't been collecting user ID before, so there was nothing to remove. But we have this location data present in the data lake, so this is going, if we're forced to remove it, this is going to be a pretty large problem, because that's months, probably years of snowplow events with this data, and that's going to take a lot of time and a lot of processing power to go through all of that, because this is all stored as tab separated values in text files, basically. So it's not as simple as dropping a database column, and we would have to manually go through each and every file and scrub those particular columns from every line. And I'm wondering how we might go around doing that. So maybe you have some ideas, but I think that removal might just not be feasible unless we are really forced to do it. Then we might set something up, but that's going to take a lot of time.
So yeah, you're correct that we didn't have this issue with user ID. At first, I'll start with asking data team if we really need, or if there's a big value in preserving the data or all the data, like trying to negotiate with them, like, do we even need it? Like, maybe we can, or we can go different way about it. So once they are migrated on the Snowflake, remove the column, then we just download the data, like we different directions. So we get the data from the Snowflake to create the backup, rather than migrate the S3 files and drop the old files. That may be one way to do it, or the easier even way, like they will say, like, yeah, we don't care about these files anyway, just remove it and don't worry. But if they say that they want to keep it around and we are not able to use the Snowflake to get the replacement for these files, then probably we need to think about some kind of backgrounds, jobs and scripts that will do the job for us. Because I guess it's a legal concern, and it might be that we are not able to. So we either provide the legal reason. I think that was what was stated, that we need to have valid business reason to collect the geolocalization data. And if we don't have any valid business reason and we still collect it, then we are subject to various privacy regulation rules. And well, as long as nobody discovers that we have this data, we are good. But in case of any kind of audits, we'll be in trouble.
Yeah, that's not how that's not how this works, right? Yeah, I would love to not have to do that if possible, because that's going to be if I remember correctly, it was almost a quarter of a terabyte per month worth of events. So we're looking at terabytes of data to go through in total. So that's going to be tough. And it would be infinitely better to just drop the old events in S3 if that's possible. So yeah, I'll talk to data team about that.
Yeah. I think I remember at least one conversation where the data team was referring to the fact that Snowflake is not supposed to be kind of a backup solution. So my assumption right now would be that they would prefer to have, for example, the data lake or other, like some other solutions still around with a backup to re-ingest the data at some point. But I think it's definitely good. Like we should document the solution proposed by Mikolai of letting them migrate Snowflake, and I would assume that should be some kind of solution to kind of extract or back up the data from Snowflake up to a certain point. And so recreating, I mean, it's still going to be terabytes of data, but it sounds easier than writing a custom script and applying it to terabytes of data, is rather having some kind of export, even if then the structure might be slightly different than what we have available right now in the data lake. It's still, I mean, the main purpose is not re-ingestion right now, but would just be to kind of record keep in the long run. If out of some reason Snowflake goes down, we switch to another data warehouse, whatever. So yeah, maybe Piotr, just reach out to them and then keep us in the loop what they say. About, like, I would still ask them if it's okay, it's okay to just have the data in Snowflake and get rid of it on our side, and if not, then ask them about export capabilities of Snowflake as soon as the data is migrated, in the sense that they got rid of all the additional fields, because then that also might be a possibility. Cool.
All right, will do.
Yeah, as next thing, Piotr, you have in there, we can also quickly vocalize it when you're going to be out of office. I think we can also just quickly share, every one of us, how long they're going to be away, so that we have this information also in here.
Yeah, sure. I'll be gone tomorrow. I'll be back on January 6th. No, not January 6th, January 9th. Because I'll be gone till 6th included.
We'll definitely enjoy those holidays. So I'm just going to be away next week. So from starting with Saturday the 24th, and then back, I think that's the 2nd January. Yeah, the 2nd. Nikolai, Jonas, when are you both gonna be out?
Yeah, I'm gonna be out. Let me look at the calendar. And I, of course, set to today, not week. The Murphy's law at its best. 26th and 27th, I'm gonna be in the office on 28 and 29. Then I'm gonna be away again on 30th of December. I will write everything down in a second and be back in the office at January 2nd.
Yeah, and I'll be out from Friday this week till the and including the 2nd of January.
Nice. All right. So yeah, that's mostly then just gonna be Nikolai sitting there with or without his head and being responsible for keeping everything running. No pressure. All right, I just have 2 more small things I wanted to raise awareness about before we end this meeting. One of them is we have the retro issue open. I'm not 100% sure. At some point, it sends around the notification anyway to everyone to participate in the retro issue. Still, feel free to already put things in there. I mean, there's already some discussions ongoing where you can contribute towards things we can improve upon or just change. But definitely also maybe, especially Piotr, for example, if you're going on vacation, maybe take a look before you go while things are still fresh from the current milestone. I would assume as soon as you're back, you might not remember as much about what happened or what went well or what went wrong, and feel free to kind of add those things in there so that we can have then an asynchronous discussion around all the things that we can improve, but also all the things that went well. I think that's at least as important to kind of give props to all the things that we did and achieved. And the other one is, I think I shared a bunch of weeks ago that Martin, who's a customer service engineer, created an app, like a small visualization application to visualize a service ping data for a specific customer to show them how they're adopting things. I thought this is quite interesting because it's like a single engineer's effort to work with our data. And fortunately, he agreed to also kind of give us a bit more intro to what he's been building there and why, and maybe also in the long run, how we could help or the ideas that he has. So because this might, on the one hand, there might be easy wins for us to just help him to get more value out of his tool, or also for us to understand kind of why he's been doing it, what value it creates, to incorporate these ideas into our future developments. That's going to happen on the 10th of January, because I think then everyone should be back. But feel free to let me know if the time or date doesn't work for anyone, because I really want to make sure that like everyone can also attend and ask questions directly while Martin is showing us what he did there. Cool. That's it from my side as well then. Are there any questions left? Then I see all of you or some.
I have a practical question here. How do I add my name in the Google Doc like you guys do?
With an ad.
Yeah.
All right.
Put an ad and then you start typing your name and then you can.
Right, there we go. Thank you.
Fancy stuff. The most practical tip today.
Yeah, totally.
All right, then I see all of you in the social call, or some of you maybe. Bye.